Hello, lovers. Welcome back for another lecture. Today, we are going to do multiple objects. Let's get started. In the beginning, we are mapping everything into an envelope. That's what we call. Look at the angle of the subject, defining this subject quickly, not looking for any details, just quickly looking for angle connections. So mapping everything into the sections and then redividing into different grounds and also placement, things like that. So in this case, the crown, it is about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1/5 of the space. That is about 1/5 of the space. The ball is about right here. That is a golf ball. And the head of the pot is here. We are looking for the subject in big shapes. And here, which is more likely an egg shape, an ellipse. You can actually just convert like that. And also there's another ellipse right here. And the level, break down the level of one leg to another leg. Now here is another foot right here, the front paws, and towards another one. It seems the golf ball needs to be bigger. This is the size of the golf ball. Okay, the space in between is about right here. Nothing final at this point. I just want to make sure the angle is correct. The back paws and then the front paws right here. And the angle of the leg. At this point, as I said, no detail at all. Just aiming for the most basic shapes that we can see and we can find. Look at the placement of the part of the object. So the head right here, the crown, really simple. It doesn't look like anything at this point, but that's what need to be at the beginning. We are not be attached to the details. And then here is the nose and the mouth area. Pretty simple. Now for the pins on the ground, I'm looking for the placement of the pin. Actually, I can come across at that. There's a pin right here. There's one right here, and we can also look for another triangle right here. I'm trying to use some organic shapes, geometric shapes as much as I can. Simple shapes to map in the objects. This way, I can actually forget about any extra information that it become distraction to me and allow me to think clearly, actually. Just like that. Right, so update this map in, and then of course starting to do a little more refinement on top. Big forms first, right? Always big forms first. Angle, come back in. Stomach comes in this way. And most of the time, I do not just draw line by line like that, but I also consider the whole form as a rib cage, how the rib cage appears for the subject. That's a big shape right here, but when we break down more, there are more general shapes that we can actually use. It's much more helpful that way, actually. Even though my movement is slow, but by looking at those and use those information to help me, those are shortcuts actually. You don't need to be fast, but has to be accurate and also using the form correctly to help you taking less of the approach. So at this point, I'm going to look into the subject by cutting into more and more refinement and getting more and more look like the subject. Each time I go forward, it's supposed to be enhancing the finish level. So half is about right here. Actually, the tip of the triangle is supposed to be here. So the envelope is supposed to be start from here, actually, like this. At this point, anything is changeable. Don't allow yourself lock things down so tightly you can't even change anything anymore. Be flexible. If something's not correct, this is the best time for you to change and modify and correct at the same time. Right? So, as I always saying, we should think about how to modify the drawing instead of how to fix the drawing. The fix, that means you have to readjusting everything and making the subject look more convinced. But modifying is building on top of another layer of subject, the structure and tone, things like that, in the correct approach, and then just make it better. So that's how I use the term modifying and also fix. I don't use the word fix in my classes actually. We're talking about modifying the subject instead of a fix the subject. You don't have to be in a hurry. Taking my time, but actually by taking my time, I speed up much faster. Because in meanwhile, I'm sketching. I'm also analyzing what needs to be done for the subject at the same time. And I'm not just copying. Copying, to be able to copy is one thing, but to be able to think in terms of the subject, how and why, and you'll be able to answer your own questions. That is more important. So I'd rather be a little bit slow at the beginning. It's fine, and it will definitely help you to increase the speed that later on when you go towards the maybe at the mid stage or the final stage. This would be a little bit more refined drawing and much more than the other ones I have been drawing for a quick result within 1 hour. It be finished. At this stage, I am finalizing everything that needs to be concluded onto the surface of my drawing. So even the pins I'm drawing now, they are just simple shapes. I'm not doing too much of a refined drawing on top of the subject right now. As you can see, I'm just trying to compose the element onto the surface to make the whole drawing to fulfill with the basic compositions. So after this, I can just go ahead and erase some of the unnecessary lines on top, even though that I don't necessarily have to erase it, because later on when I put a tone on top, it will actually cover many of these lines, even kind of disappear without erasing. So, but for your view, to see more clearly, this is something I would need to do. And before the continuation of the drawing. Okay, this pretty much, I have set up the outline, contour line for the subject, and I'm about to go into the second stage, which is unifying the subject with shadows, things like that. I've indicated all the shadows here with the indication, and all this will become shadows actually. Let me do the final check before going into the shading area. So okay, the next stage, as I said, I'm going to block in with all the shadows and put in some tones around the subject. As I quickly map in, compose the value, the darker shadow value onto my subject. Some of those texture up here right now is fine. All I have to do is just dab a little later on. It will kind of disappear and retouch things like that. Those area which is not really a big factor. Even the shadow, I try to fade it out a little. And I'm using my palm, as you can see. I use all the part of my hand to do the drawing. Even the palm, the whole palm right here, the side of the palm, and the front of the palm. Whichever that I can use to help the drawing. And as I said before, you can use stump, you can use chamois, or you can even use baby wipe. So whichever that is your preference. For me, my hand is more trusted for me to do my drawings, because I can directly touch the surface, touching and giving me an idea how much pressure I need, um, where actually I can totally control the wave of the movement of the medium. So some people, as I said, like to use other medium. It's fine. I'm just doing using the tool, which is my hand. It's more comfortable for me. So as you can see, the tone of my finger. Now I can use it for other part of the drawing as well. Just kind of a tone down some of the area. All of a sudden it feels a little bit different because of tone. Now I'm trying to remain the highest contrast on the face area. Just give it a little bit soft tone all over the place. And also by doing this, will give myself a unity of the subject too. Sometimes I would like to use some toning, some charcoal put on the background, and then use a chamois cloth or a piece of tissue or a baby wipe to put in some tone in the background to tone in the. It's a similar idea, right? So it's just your preference. By doing this, now I add some tones on the subject, and it will help me to define the puck a little bit more in the longer run down the road. It might look a little bit spotty or dirty right now, which is fine. This is just the beginning stage. All right, so this is supposed to be a golf ball right here, but I'm not going to do too much of the texture on top. And also this is not a really long-term drawing anyway, and it's still considered as a short term. So all those information I will not put in, just barely put in the basic information such as the shadow, midtone, highlight, and reflect the light. Let you know that is a ball. That's it. That's good enough for this demo. Now after this stage is done, the next thing I need to do, which is defining some of the core shadows. Not some, but most of and all the core shadow actually. It just depends on how much pressure I need to put on and the idea of a focal point that we talked about last time. And put that in, defining the idea of the subject. I'm not restricting myself by doing too much details at the beginning. This stage can also redefining the drawing a little bit more, because earlier when the mapping of the shadow can actually break some of the contents. So this is the time that I can actually go back and recalculate a little, kind of reconnecting what I left off earlier. So I will go through the rest of the drawing and start the next stage. The head coming forward slowly, and more refined, and look more and more like the subject. And I will work my way down, even though I spent a lot of time right here, but as you can see at the bottom, it doesn't feel like it is sketchy, too sketchy, just outline or basic uh, line drawn at the bottom, because when I'm working on top of the subject at the beginning, I already unify the subject. That's why unification is a important even at the beginning, that you try to create your subject, give a unity to the subject. So regardless how much more information I put on top of this area, at least there are something that you can hold on to your eye, not feeling like it's empty or the subject is non-related. And I try not to do too much information in this shadow area. I only indicate the one that I can see when I am squinting my eyes. If I'm squinting my eye, I cannot see the information too clearly. I would say, in my case, I would just simplify it. Not skipping it, but just simplifying it. Okay, the information you cannot skip, but how to not shown a lot by, not shown a lot by getting the maximum the outcome. So that's what fun for the subject, to draw the subject. For some people might having a hard time to look for all the subtle information. As I said, to me, that part is more fun than the more obvious area, because I can pick and choose and play around with the subject and the idea, and what can I do to have minimum credible effort to gain the maximum outcome. At this stage, I'm moving forward to give a little more information about the rest of the body of the dog, and then now getting towards more closer to the final stage, and I'm still drawing not fast. I try to control my speed and knowing exactly what stage I'm at. So just a little bit more here and there. This is the refining stage. This is the modification stage. Modifying the shape, tones, and value, and then we can go ahead and finalize the rest of the information on top. There's some folds right here. I need to come in and do some indications. Just make sure it becomes softer afterward. Finding my highlight area. Even when you're doing this, make sure from one end to another end, it's not the same pressure and also same value contrast. They're not the same. So one is closer to you, the other one is kind of further away from you. Something like that. As I said, I'm always taking my time in this kind of small area. I'm not in a rush. As I said it before, I'm not in a rush to damage my drawing, to ruin my drawing. If I spend so much time on it, at the end stage, I would like to have a good result too. So I'm trying to finding the structure and the tones, and also earlier finding the movement of the highlight earlier. As I said, I'm trying to move slowly, even when I'm drawing right now. I breathe slowly. Even my breath can be affecting the result of my final outcome. So, as I said, it's almost towards the end. And what I need to do, which is finalize the dog, and at the end, also finish the pins, and that would be it for this drawing. This is still considered a long-term draw. I mean, a short-term draw, not a long-term. a short-term drawing. Short-term mean minimum time, really less time, and a refined drawing could be over 10, 15, 20 hours. But this one, I only spent about 2, 3 hours on top. So, also the crown too. I forgot, almost forgot the crown. So that also need to do some enhancement and also adjustment on top. So we still have quite a few things to do. Now by doing this, I can also defining the pause and also in the background behind the pause right here. So but do be careful with the edge, something like that. Now I also have set up the foreground, the pause right here. All I have to do is just erase the knuckle area, because knuckle area, which is the changing point area, to make an idea the object is kind of turn. Okay, on the cloth. So just a little bit enhancement to indicate the change of the knuckles. That little bit actually can do a lot. And also the pause on the other side, between the top plane and the side plane, and that will be it. I don't need to indicate too much information about that. Now, for the pins, it's not that hard for the pins actually. All I have to do is just be a little bit more precise. And erase a little to clean things up. As simple as that. See, the pin just came out, just like that. And for the other one, I'm going to draw the shadow, and then body, finish with the belly lips, and with the shadow on the ground. Okay, actually, shadow is different, so I'm going to change the shadow a little. And this one, so I'm going to break into a smaller piece to suggest the dark value quickly. So I'm using a smaller stick to suggest the darker tone. Much. Okay, so in this case, I'm just going to go ahead and soften up some of the edges here and there. Now I'm going to use my eraser to do the final stage. Not the final stage yet. I'm going to move this shape over a little more. Just like that. And use my eraser. Okay. Pull out some of the highlights. Not everywhere. I always think that be selective. And going back and forth. I'm just doing some a little bit more random shapes right here. It doesn't really make sense in the beginning, but it will make better sense later on when the drawing is near complete stage. It will make it look more like kind of a shiny metal. Just pick up some highlight here and there. As I said, I'm not trying to do perfectly what is appearing actually on top of the subject. I don't have that kind of time to do it. I'm doing more as a selective area. Well, as you can see, the subject look more like metallic, right? Just because of contrast. So we have talked about how to compose different elements before. This would be just more like review. Okay, almost there. I'm just indicate a few more shapes here and there to finalize the drawing. All right, the drawing is basically, in a way, it's kind of done. Not really finally done, but it's done in a short amount of time. Okay, this is it. This is a roughly done drawing, as I said. Um, I hope you like the video. If you like it, please click like, subscribe, and share with your friends. I'll see you next time. Bye.